Today, we're going to talk about the GOAT of the GOATest GOAT. Welcome to today's video. I am Karar, and today we're going to take a closer look of the AP Royal Oak Chronograph in blue dial, and this is actually the 50th anniversary model. Later down this video, I will be answering 5 of the most asked questions on Google. But first, let's go ahead. Back in 1972, with the 5402, Audemars Piguet wanted to launch a luxury sports watch in steel. Unheard of back in the days because a luxury watch was and should be in gold. AP reached out to the godfather of watch design, Mr. Gerald Genta, and he had one task at hand, and that was to design this watch in less than 24 hours. And boy, did he deliver. The sketch that he created in less than 24 hours actually just recently sold at an auction for over 610,000 US dollars. That is just for the sketch. So that gives you an idea of how much of an icon this actual design has become in the industry. The design for the Royal Oak was inspired by the deep sea diver's helmet. That means we can go diving with a Royal Oak, correct? No, not correct. Because unfortunately and ironically enough, the Royal Oak fetches a 5 ATM water resistance. That means if you're out to sea, you should be very careful wearing your Royal Oak if it's a hot day. Now, obviously, the Royal Oak is a watch that I've wanted to have in my stable for the longest time ever. However, I really love chronographs. And in the past, I think the chronograph offering from AP has been quite weak, because if we look at the 26331, that is the predecessor to this current model, majority of the design was on my con list because the unbalanced and awkward subdials, the very awkward date window, it just wasn't a clear fit for me. And also, you don't have an in-house movement on a sports steel watch that almost traded for 100K at its peak of the craze. It just didn't make sense for me. However, with the 26240, which now houses a fully in-house movement with a clear case back giving you full view into the watch and the perfect dial symmetry. So the 26240 was introduced in 4 different colors, and obviously we can rank them depending on how desirable they are on the market. Obviously, the green is the most popular one, the blue coming in just behind that, and then you have the black, and then you have at last the white. But today we're gonna take a closer look in the flesh with the blue dial version of the Royal Oak 50th anniversary. So now I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts about the last month with the Royal Oak on my wrist. I think the design, the overall look of the new chronograph is an absolute beast, and I think AP really nailed it. And that is a lot thanks to the current movement that is in-house movement 4401. So let's take a closer look here of the dial balance that I've been talking about here. So if you look at the subdials here, you see that they are equally sized and equally balanced throughout the dial. One thing that the new caliber 4401 actually offers is a different date positioning. So if we compare this to its predecessor, you can see that the date window now actually sits between the 2 buttons 4 and 5 o'clock. And it's very seamless. It does not harm the design. It actually complements it in a very beautiful way. Obviously, when you look at the front, you see the cockiness of the Royal Oak design. You see the brushed, you see the polished, you see the balance, and you see some of that bracelet just shining through. It's a mesmerizing watch to look at. And if we turn this beast around, you obviously have the clear case back, and here we have a 50th anniversary rotor. So all the Royal Oaks that was produced in 2022 actually comes with a specific rotor that says 50 years anniversary. You might think this is in the same metal as the watch, which is stainless steel. However, this is a 22 karat pink gold rotor that AP has plated to make sure it matches the movement and the rest of the case. That is attention to detail. And with the new flyback chronograph, when you actually activate the movement and you press the reset button on the chronograph, you see all the gears moving here in the case back, and this is what you're paying for. Such an amazing looking movement. And obviously we cannot talk about Royal Oak without talking about this fucking insane bracelet. It's an incredibly comfortable bracelet to have on. However, there is one part that I kind of dislike, and that is the clasp, because with this watch you don't really have any micro adjustments. So depending on how snug you like the watch to fit on your wrist, it's gonna either be a little bit too tight or a bit too loose. So back in 72, if you looked at the price tag of a Royal Oak, it was around 3,650 Swiss francs. Average annual salary of a European man was around 3,000 Swiss francs. It was a yearly salary on your wrist back in 1972 if you wanted to acquire a Royal Oak. How much has changed in the last 50 years? If we take a look today, a Royal Oak is gonna set you back somewhere around 30 to 35,000 Swiss francs. And if we look at the yearly salary, that is going to be around 30,000 Swiss francs. So the conclusion? Not much has really changed in the market ratio between 72 and 2022. However, one major change is the demand for these watches and the actual market value. Because as you might know, you cannot just walk into an AP store and tell them, I'll take that Royal Oak or that Royal Oak, because they are not available in the stores. So you need to actually look at the secondary market and see what kind of price you can find these watches for. So if we look at the chronograph here, which is a retail price of 34,000 Swiss francs, but an open market price of closer to 75,000 Swiss francs. Yeah, that is a little bit more than one yearly income of an average European. So one of the pros that you might actually find quite funny is that this watch, to the general public, it flies under the radar. And I'm comparing it to when I often wear a Rolex watch. With a Rolex watch on my wrist, whoever I'm speaking to, majority of the times, they can't help themselves but gravitate towards looking at what I'm wearing on my wrist. It's like a lady with beautiful tits. Like, you can't just hold it. And with the AP Royal Oak, people actually don't really see what you're wearing. However, when you actually meet a geek that sees what you're wearing on your wrist, they're gonna flip the fuck out, and I had that happening to me in a mall, and that was a pretty funny interaction. And the second pro on my list is obviously that the Royal Oak is a pretty good investment. Yes, I'm gonna use the word investment, don't fucking shoot me, because I think this watch holds its value extremely well. A Royal Oak is extremely desirable, and the demand far exceeds the production. And the third pro, obviously, I mean, it's the fucking design. The way this watch makes you feel when you wear it. This is just a stunning, stunning, stunning piece. Okay, so on the con list, first of all, for me, I think the thickness of a watch is pretty important, because if you're going to wear this as a daily, you are going to be hitting things. So compared to a Rolex that usually have a thickness of around 10 to 11 millimeters, this comes to 12.5. That 1.5 millimeter, you are going to feel it. If you're used to a thinner watch and then all of a sudden you wear a thicker watch, you are going to be hitting things with the watch. But obviously the micro adjustment on the clasp, that is something that would be worth golden for a watch at this price point. So I wish and I hope in the future we'll be able to see that on the Royal Oak bracelet and clasp.
Now on, that would be great.
And now to your questions that you've asked Google, and here's Karar helping you out.
Why is AP more expensive than Rolex?
That's pretty easy. If you look at the detailed finishing of the watch and consider that each and individual link is hand polished and hand assembled, incredible craftsmanship that goes into an AP watch, and you can see that as well if you flip the watch around and take a closer look of the movement. It's just beautifully finished and it's all in the details, and hence why it is fetching a higher price tag than your average Rolex.
Do Royal Oaks hold their value?
As I just mentioned in this video, that is actually on my pro list. The Royal Oak holds their value tremendously well, and if you have some cash lying around, you want a new bright, shiny piece to wear on your wrist. It's a good piece to convert your money to.
How many Royal Oaks are made per year?
So, the production of Audemars Piguet is that they produce approximately 50,000 units. However, they are leaning heavily towards the Royal Oak, and I've heard somewhere around 80% of their production goes into the Royal Oak line. And that, I assume, has a healthy split between the offshore and the normal Royal Oak models. But I think the normal Royal Oak models are produced in somewhere around 30 to 40,000 pieces each year.
Does the Royal Oak scratch easily?
Unfortunately, with all watches that have a lot of flat surfaces, you are going to see scratches on them. But look at each scratch as a battle scar and a story to tell.
Should I buy a Royal Oak?
You should absolutely buy a Royal Oak if it's within your budget and if this is a watch that you actually like the aesthetic of. If you like this design, if you like this watch, this is an incredibly good purchase. Before I leave you, I just want to tell you, the first time I actually saw Royal Oak in person, it was the same day I acquired my first luxury watch, and that was a Rolex Daytona. And just sitting a few counters beside that was a Royal Oak chronograph in rose gold. And when I saw that piece, I knew, and I said to myself, one day I'm going to be able to buy one of those watches. Unfortunately, the rose gold is just priced out of this world, but I'm extremely happy and blessed to be able to welcome this to the collection. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's video. Make sure to hit that subscribe, like, bell icon, everything that we need for YouTube. And make sure to check us out at iflwatches.com. See you guys next time around.